Hi, I'm Will, and welcome to the second episode of Built from Scratch. With Built from Scratch, we will be doing what the title says. We're gonna starting from a blank Scratch project, which we started from last time. Starting with the Scratch project and just a little Scratch cat, we are going to start from there. We're going to build ourselves a complete, fun, interesting video game. Something that is, interesting to program and interesting to play is the final goal here. In this game, what we're going to do is we're going to fly a starship all around the galaxy, all around the universe. We're going to go to exciting new places. We're going to go to planets. We're going to visit stars. We're going to collect things. We're going to talk to aliens. Who knows what we're going to do, really? Those are all just fun things that sound fun to do. But right now, what this starship does is it flies. We got this little starship, and it flies around this little tiny rectangle of space. We don't want to fly around a little tiny rectangle of space. We want to fly through the entire giant vastness, the vast expanse of empty space, and boldly go to all sorts of really fun and cool things. So to do that, to make it so that we can get to bigger, better places, we are going to have to add some features to this game. Specifically, the feature we're going to have to add is what is generally called scrolling, and we're going to jump right into doing that. But before we do that, I'm going to go to File. Here I'm going to say save as a copy, because I'm going to make a new one. I'm going to call this episode 2. I'm not going to title the episode yet, because who knows what we're going to cover, although I have a pretty good idea. We'll title it at the end right before we click share. If you are following along, you can of course go to the Built from Scratch page on Scratch. You can go to my Scratch profile and you can get the episode 1 source code. You can remix it and you can follow along from there, or you can just watch and have fun. It's really up to you, although I do think you learn programming better by actually clicking and doing it. So here we are. We can fly this ship. We have a little thruster. We can fly it around the screen, and when it hits the edge of the screen, it doesn't move anymore because there's nowhere else for it to go. In order to make it so that there's somewhere else for it to go, we're going to need a way of thinking about our position in the world, in the universe of our game, as something different from its position on the screen. And the way we're going to think about it is we're going to think about this little viewport, this little rectangle, this little white rectangle here as a kind of camera. And everything that is in this rectangle is going to be on camera, and everything that isn't in this rectangle is going to be off camera. And so as we move our ship around, we can also move our camera around with it, and it can, pan around and show us all sorts of interesting places. In order to have a camera, I'm going to make a new sprite. I'm going to click, I don't need the sprite library because I don't want this sprite to actually have any costumes at all. I'm going to go to Paint New Sprite. I'm going to name this sprite Camera. Camera with a C, and with the reasonable capitalization. There we go. Camera. I'm not going to draw any costumes at all, but I am going to draw on this costume very briefly. I'm going to draw ourselves a little diagram here, because I just want to talk a little bit about how this camera is going to work. So what we're going to do is we are going to have ourselves a little spaceship, right? We're going to have a little spaceship here. Apparently our spaceship's going to be green this time. It's going to be a green triangle. And then we're going to have a viewport window that's going to be the camera. It's not going to be solid. That would occlude the view. We don't want it like that. I want this, and I want not to be in solid. I want to be like that, right? So this is going to be our screen here. Our screen is, we'll start with having our screen centered on the centered on our starship, and then out here, out in the vast expanse of space, there's going to be some planets, right? There's going to be this planet, this little blue planet. It's another little blue planet. Maybe there's going to be a purple planet over here. Who really knows? And so as we fly around space, we're going to take this camera with us, and then if you think about that square as our screen, you can see that instead of moving our ship around, what we're going to do is we're going to move these circles around so that they get closer and closer to our starship here. That's all just a diagram, though. I don't really need it, so I'm going to get rid of it. No more costume, and here we go. As I previously said, in order to represent the position of our things in the world as distinct from where we draw them on the screen, we're going to need some way to store that information. When we store information in Scratch, in programming in general, we're going to be storing it in a variable. And so the camera is going to have two variables. They're going to be for this sprite only, for the camera only, because they're going to store the position in the universe of the camera They're going to be called world X and world Y because world is shorter to type than universe. And of course, the player ship is also going to need these. In fact, almost every object in our game is going to need these things. World X and, oh, apparently, maybe I made it for all sprites. Yeah, we're going to need it to be for this sprite only, not for all sprites. Oh, it looks like I already had these variables made, which is a little maybe. I'm just going to ignore that, and I'm going to keep going. I probably had them from one of the previous takes of this that had accidentally that went horribly awry. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to say for this sprite only world X, and make a variable for this sprite only world Y. Yeah, I definitely had them earlier because the last take messed up the audio and bad things happened. And so anyway, here we are. We're doing it now, forever, for the first time, etc. So player ship, camera, everything is wonderful. We have a world X and we have a world Y. And so instead of changing our X position when we fly our ship around, though, now we're going to need, our ship is going to stay in the center of the screen, and we're going to fly the camera and the viewport and everything else. Everything else is going to move, and the ship is going to stay the same. So instead of changing X by velocity X and changing Y by velocity Y, these built-in Scratch variables for our position, we're going to use our own variables and we're going to change them. So we're going to change world Y and we're going to change world X. And of course, we are going to change world X by velocity X, and we're going to change world Y by velocity Y. So now when I fly my ship around, the ship doesn't move. Instead, these numbers immediately become enormously big. So that's great. I can fly here. I'm going to stop. Our camera is going to want to follow our ship around. So our camera is going to have a very simple script just to do that. It's going to say when flag clicked forever. And we are going to set world X and world Y. Remember, setting these world variables and not the built-in Scratch position variables. I'm going to set world X to the world X of the player ship. And of course, I cannot get at that through this data tab. This data panel here only gives me access to the variables that are for the sprite that I'm editing. So since these are variables for this sprite only, the camera is not allowed to access them, not allowed to change them. It is allowed to know what they are, though. And in order to know what they are, it can get them from this sensing, a block in this sensing thing, this block here that says X position of camera. It can also say world X of player ship. So I'm going to set the world X and world Y of the camera to the world X and world Y of the player ship. So now I can go ahead and I can look at these variables. I have them, and now they're going to stay pretty much the same. So that's pretty great. So now I'm flying this ship around, and the ship is staying in the center of the screen, and the world X and world Y are changing just like we want them to. But the thing is, we're not doing anything with this information, right? We're just letting it grow to enormously large numbers. And so we're going to need some other objects in the world in order to see this scrolling work. We can't actually see the player ship scroll if there is just a player ship in the world that the camera is always centered on. So I'm going to make a new sprite. I'm going to paint a new sprite. I'm going to call it Test Planet. Test Planet. And I'm going to go into scripts here, and I'm going to give this Test Planet, it's also going to get a world X and a world Y. World X, it's going to get a world X, it's going to get a world Y. I thought I drew a thing there. I'm going to give it a little, it's going to be I'm going to hold down Shift to make this thing be a circle. Use a paint bucket tool to fill it in. We're going to have this blue planet here, and we can have some other planets too, but we're going to start just programming the code for this one planet. And so the first thing we're going to do is we need to set the world X and world Y of the planet when the flag is clicked, so it is in a particular position. At the moment, it's just going to be in 0, 0. So I'm going to go here, I'm going to set world X, I'm going to set world Y, and I'm going to set them to something pretty arbitrary. I'm going to set them to 500, 500. So it's just going to be off up here somewhere, right? 45-degree angle over there. Of course, the player ship and the camera, world X and world Y, at the moment seem to be 82,075 and 63,331. Those are very large numbers. So let's just have them be set to 0 here when I hit the flag. All right, great. set the camera X to 0, world X, world Y to 0, and the planet is at 500, 500. And so now I can fly around, and I change these numbers, and the planet exists on the screen, but the planet's position, the where we are drawing the planet, doesn't have anything to do with where we're flying our old ship around, right? So we still haven't really fixed any problems. We need to actually set where we are drawing this on the screen, and we need to set it in some way that has to do with the position of the camera and the position, a relationship between the position of the camera and the position of the test planet. So we're going to do that inside of a little forever loop, because every frame we're always going to want to recalculate where we should draw it, because our ship is probably moving around quite a lot. So we are going to say forever. We are going to set, drawing it to the screen is actually going to be setting its X position and Y position. So I'm going to set X and set Y, and I'm going to set X to the position of the camera minus my position. So I'm going to set X to world X of camera, world X of camera, and I'm going to set Y to minus world X, minus my world X, and I'm going to set my world Y to world Y of camera minus my world Y. So now, if I'm lucky, everything has gone horribly wrong because, no, everything's fine. No, everything is backwards, right? Because it turns out I've done this wrong, and now I have made it so that if I fly away from the planet, it comes towards me. So in fact, I actually have to do this the other way, and this is a mistake that I make about 50% of the time when I am writing this code, because apparently I just can't either think it through or bother remembering something. But that's what makes programming so awesome. What makes programming so awesome is that it's very easy to edit your work. So I can just fly over here, and now, come on, I want to get to this planet. Where are you, planet? Why is that stuck on? Why is it stuck over there? Camera world X, camera world Y, test planet world X. They're both 500. So let's see, I should just go here, and it should get closer and closer, but it doesn't. Oh no, it's working now. All right, everything's fine. Yep, I've just flown myself over to 500, 500. If I go to the right, if my thing gets, yeah, so I'm just orbiting around this planet. Everything is wonderful. I can fly around this planet, and it's pretty great. And yeah, I'm just going to duplicate this planet a couple times. I'm just going to do 3, and I'm just for fun, I'm going to make them a couple different colors. I'm going to make a little purple planet here. I'm going to make a little yellow planet. I'm going to make a little green planet. And I'm just going to pick some values for these things. I'm going to make this negative 500, 500. I'm going to make this one 150, and I'm going to make this one negative 50 and 150. And I'm going to say go. And we can see that they are each, in fact, in the correct locations. I can fly over here, and everything's pretty okay. I can fly around and drift around these planets. But as I get further away, they kind of bunch up at the edges here, and we're going to need to handle that one in the future. Other than that, we are doing pretty good for flying around. The other real problem with this is that our velocity gets very, very large very, very quickly, and our World X and World Y also get very, very large very, very quickly, and so we cannot really easily control this ship. So I'm going to want to probably make some variable that clamps down the speed of our ship. We're going to do all that next time. So for now, though, we have gotten it so that we can scroll around a universe. I'm going to call this episode 2. Episode 2, I'm going to call it Scrolling the Universe. I'm going to save it. I'm going to share it. I guess it is automatically shared because it is a copy of something that was shared. I'm not really sure. I'm going to jump onto the C project page and just have a look. And that's going to be that. So I hope you will join me. I hope you had fun. Oh, there you go. It's not shared. I'm going to click share. But yeah, thanks for joining me on this one. We're going to just keep on working. We're going to keep on programming until we have something really awesome. I hope to see you next time, and I hope you tune in. And as always, if you have any questions, any comments, any suggestions, any curiosities at all, you can feel free to message me on Scratch. I am Built from Scratch with underscores between the words. And of course, the project is here for you to use, so feel free to grab the code, remix it, do something awesome. If you do something fun with it, I'd love to see. See you next time. Thanks. Bye.